Hi, it is day 39 of the 40 Gameful days of summer, and I can't believe it's almost done. When I started, 40 seemed like a really kind of overly optimistic number in some ways, but as I'm getting closer to the end of this series, I thought today I was feeling a little reflective this morning as I was riding my bus into town, and I thought that's what I would share today. Just being a little reflective about the whole process. And I had three things that I learned a ton of things, but I had three things I thought maybe we would talk a little bit about today. And as always, I really value all of the questions and comments that people have sent me, or people I've talked to in person, gotten some insights as to what was most valuable to them. Because this has been a learning process for me as well as for you, hopefully, and I will be doing future ones, so don't worry, this is not the end by any stretch of the imagination. But anyway, so the first thing that I was thinking about was one of the reasons that I think that this has been a success from my point of view has been that I approached it focused on developing new and better routines and systems. And I think that's really always important when we're talking about designing things. So now I'm talking, as I often am, about both from the learner standpoint and the standpoint of you who is designing or facilitating the learning, depending on what your role is, and how important that notion of really looking at your routines and your systems. So one of the things that I was considering when I considered doing this project was, okay, I'm already like the rest of us, I'm really busy. How am I going to fit this into my day? So what I decided was that, first of all, these were going to be very informal, that this was just going to be, us chatting, and so there wasn't going to be overly scripted, planned, that sort of thing. I did do a lot of planning in terms of laying out at least a week's worth of topics at a time. I didn't want to, wake up one morning and be like, oh my gosh, what am I going to talk about today? That did happen a couple of times, only because I changed topics midweek because something came up or something. But having that routine, I also wanted it to fit seamlessly, or as seamlessly as possible, into my day, which is why I chose this informal sort of setting. And I do these literally as I'm walking. It's about a mile walk from where I get off the bus to the office. And so every day there's some specific locations I know are easy to sort of stop and do this sort of thing, and I stop at one of those along the way each morning. So it's part of my routine that I already have, which is walk to work. So thinking about that from the learner standpoint too, in terms of, in most cases, if you're working with adults, you're not talking about children just sitting in a classroom. If you're talking about adults, you're asking them to do something extra generally, and you're asking them to fit it into an already busy life, busy work day, personal day. And I think we have to be mindful of that, and we have to design things with that in mind. That's helpful to design things with that in mind. So that's the first thing, is just thinking about routines and systems and how you can improve them. Obviously, if I was starting this all over again today, I would do a lot of things differently, and that's okay. That's okay. And actually, I'll come back to that in a second a little more. But the second thing, because I don't want to make this go too long today, the second thing has to do with just working with available resources. I did do a lot of learning during this. I did try out new features. I did experiment with some other, let's say, applications or resources and that sort of thing. But basically, I stuck with some resources that were just readily available in my phone, and I didn't do, a whole lot of extra. And I think that's a valuable skill to really, practice, is what new and different things can you do with the resources that you're already familiar with, that you already use, but using them in a different way. So that's something I encourage people on an ongoing basis to try to do. And then the final thing is, as I said, these aren't perfect. didn't expect them to be perfect, but I think that's important too. I think it's important for me to show you sort of some of the bumps along the way. I had a few videos where the audio didn't sync up, for example, and I left them because I said, you know what, this is all part of a process, and that's one of the things we forget about when people start getting involved with gamification, that it's a process, and we have to keep at it, we keep learning, we keep experimenting. And so I often tell people that success validates, but failure can educate. So I think, you know, be kind to yourself, try things, and if they don't work quite right, it's okay. And honestly, in general, your learners will thank you for trying something a little different. They will be tolerant of it. They will be much more tolerant of it in most cases than you will be. I see people who try things and they beat themselves up much more than the learners do. Now, you know, obviously you're always going to have some people that are a little fussy, but you can't fix that. So yeah, just go out there and try it, and be okay with it not being, everything not being perfect, because realistically, no matter what type of technologies you're using, no matter what methodologies you're using, none of it's ever perfect, right? So this is just another way, and actually I think this mindset, the Gameful mindset, actually is more resilient. It helps you to be more resilient and say, hey, okay, that didn't quite work, we're going to do it a little differently next time, we're going to try something a little different, and we're just going to keep learning along the way. So I apologize, I went a little long today, but we're getting close to the end, and you know, I guess I'm getting a little overly chatty. So as always, please let me know what you think, and I will see you back here tomorrow for the final day of this series. And I thank you all so much for all your comments and watching and everything, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye.